What's your most productive day in the week?
I cannot say that I have like more productive days or less because
Good.
I'm like always.
That's probably good because you have a balance. I totally have the first few days of the week. As I get towards the end of the week, I feel that I'm lagging and looking towards the weekend.
Welcome to the CRA Corner Podcast. I am Anna Parts.
And I'm Maria Milas, and we're two former CRAs talking all things clinical operations. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Corner Podcast. We're so happy to have you here with us. I hope that you're finding these episodes interesting, insightful, valuable. Thank you for all the messages that you're sending, both Annalisa and I. We love to receive your comments, your messages, your DMs in our LinkedIn's, by email or in the comments of YouTube or Spotify. So we really, really appreciate that. And we also love to be able to be doing this and sharing this with you, with the broader community. So today, Annalisa, I wanted to share with you that I met someone who is a CRA. She's a CRA, but a very freshly baked CRA. What I mean by that is she started as a CRA on Monday. So today it's Thursday. She's been literally on the job for 4 days. So she's part of that, those 2 weeks of trainings or maybe a month of training if you're lucky. That a month.
Yeah, we had a month.
Good for you. I had 2 weeks. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that. I would love to know, what were your first steps once you became a CRA, that day one? Now, we know how you joined as a CRA. We had slightly different paths, which it is also great because it's representative of the industry. So if anybody hasn't heard the podcast on how we joined, how we became CRAs, I highly encourage you to do so. But once you are, and let's say that day one into a CRO, right? Because we both started as a CRO. How was it?
Yeah, for me, actually, at the time, our company still had an office for not for everybody, but basically a small office. And I remember that I had to go in. It was in a big, basically shopping center part of that. So I did go into the office just for the first week, where we still we're remote, so everybody was working from home. But it was just a small office, and I had my line manager at the time joining me for the whole week. And I still remember that it was an office filled with paper, filled with basically the supplies the supplies that need to go to sites. Everything was just stacked under the tables and everything. Just trying to basically try just to find a place to put these things. And it was really I would say when I felt that I went into accounting firm because it was just filled with so many papers, and everything else was just so feeling that I got from there. But it actually, for the first day, I was excited definitely, but because I didn't have any understanding what actually clinical trials are. It was a totally new industry and new thing that I was learning. And indeed, for us, it was 4 weeks. So the training itself is 4 weeks. So it was divided into weeks. So you had you needed to start with the number one, meaning that it was for the first week, the trainings, and then you moved to second, third, and fourth. And definitely it was a lot of the amount of training. IQVIA had actually, and I think they still are using this, they have developed a training session, modules. Even actually maybe even calling it program. And it was really intense. It was really, really a lot of trainings to be done before you could actually go and perform these things. So you were not able to perform site monitoring before you actually had gone through the module of site monitoring. So it was a lot of work, just basically sitting behind the computer and just reviewing this module. How was for you, because you were in a different company when you started?
Yes, I started at Icon, and I made that switch between being a CTA and then switching towards the CRA role. For me, the training was shorter. It was not a month, it was 2 weeks. And I think overall, it wasn't because you switched and you were already in the company and you were just CRA. I think it was just maybe more compact or maybe more concise. But those 2 weeks, it was mostly splitting the day in between in-person trainings and then you at your computer reviewing trainings. So we had a big room. Yeah.
In person. You had like in person, like somebody actually. Oh, wow. We didn't have that.
Yeah, we did. It was still 2017, so it was maybe also before COVID. But I don't know how. At least Icon here in Barcelona still has a main office, and people still go into the office. So the policy back then was that we were going every day to the office. So those 2 weeks we would start, let's say 9:30, and then up to 1 p.m. Then you would have in-person presentations and trainings that usually would be the CRA line manager or the trainer for CRAs, because sometimes we also have these roles. We had these roles within the company that did trainings, delivered trainings. And we were a group of CRAs who were joining, let's say, in that batch. Call them, every month you would have a batch of CRAs. So we were around 20. I think maybe we're 18, 20, around that. It feels like first day of school where you make your friends and you just grab each other's hands and then you say, okay, now we're CRAs together.
Yeah.
And then we had 2 weeks of in the mornings. We were in this big room, which, by the way, it was very distracting because Icon's office in Barcelona is by the beach. So it's full glass. And then everything you see is just surfers and people at the beach. And then you're thinking, maybe I should just go downstairs. But it was 2 full weeks of those trainings and presentations. And then the afternoon being by your computer and then doing all the SOPs and all of these more boring trainings and policies and protocols that you would have to look to.
Yeah, oh my God, the SOPs. Don't get me started on there. I'm actually going to be like raising my hat for the person who actually is fluent in all of the SOPs that are in a company. The amount of SOPs that are, I don't even understand how they manage all of these, because quite often they are connected with each other. And if you are updating something, you need to update another one. So
it's really a shame, Annalisa, because it's so important, the trainings and the content that are in those SOPs, but the format we're delivering it to people makes it so boring and tedious that people just incapable of reading through it. If I had to, I do want to be extremely honest and transparent. I don't think 60% of those SOPs I properly read. You read in diagonal, and I know of CRAs who would advise you to, just look through it, just look to the important parts. Because if I had to take the time to just properly absorb what all those documents would be delivering the information, I would need to take at least 3 months. But just because after an hour of reading this in legalese documentation that almost says nothing direct and concise and transparent, you cannot do 4 hours in a row. You need breaks. You need to separate.
Yeah, and actually, I think it was one of my global clinical leads. She said really like smartly. She said that you don't need to know the SOPs by heart, but rather know where to find the SOP that you need. Like, don't learn all of this. Because I think I even actually tried in the beginning to not maybe learn, but basically write down and try to understand. But if you have thousands of SOPs, then you are not as a human able to comprehend everything. And I think once I got that like understanding that you don't need to actually know this, but you need to understand where to find this. If somebody's going to ask you something about that, it's the key, not actually knowing it by heart. And that after that I shifted it and just to, okay, I know my monitoring SOPs are there. Regarding ISF, I know there is over there, so I just quickly could get I think that was the way how I learned finally the SOPs as well, because I always went back to the specific SOPs and then like it just finally got to
really great tip. And the way I guess see, this is interesting. It makes me think, how often in your trajectory as a CRA did you go back to SOPs? This is an interesting question.
Yeah, actually, I think I did go back, but I did go back to really specific SOPs, because I think like we are given really a broad sense. Basically, everything that might be even a tiny bit connected to your position are given to you to be familiar with or read through. And quite often I actually went back to really specific SOPs only, meaning like regarding indeed with for the I don't know, monitoring or like these kind of things, or even like maybe monitoring reports, like how quickly I need to write and what is my like deadlines on that. But not, I think I have maybe 10, max 20% of SOPs were the ones that I used. Because
same experience for me. I totally can remember how in specific occasions I myself proactively wanted to go back to the SOP because I didn't remember, specifically. I remember one of my first silly doubts was, can we sign a document electronically? If it's, just a report of that I'm writing myself, or does it have to be in wet ink? And then I remember another doubt I had that I had to go back to the SOPs, which was, can the wet ink be black or does it have to be blue? Because in certain countries it was only accepted if it was blue ink, not black ink. So these are the silly things that are in the SOPs, but at first when you're reading 200 of them, you won't remember that. So it's a really good tip to be able to know to where are they stored and know where to go to when you have that doubt.
Yeah, indeed. I think I used as well, like not even in the CRA time, but when I was a clinical lead, I still had like people who I didn't maybe work well with, or they were really. I think in this industry, some people think more above others than they actually are. So I have used SOPs to basically show them that they are like incorrect, and you, like you as a person above me, maybe on the like level or basically in the ecosystem, you still need to, if you want to say something really snappy, then you actually need to have the facts as well. So I have used in that sense these to just show like do that it's
authority to show that authority and right in that confidence. How interesting is that, the way we use SOPs and protocols and policies, it can be so varied. But then let's speak a bit about that training comes in, and I think every company will have some sort of variety of a variation of this training. Maybe it's 2 weeks, a month, a week. Maybe it's a longer program. Maybe you will start with an internship and then you have a full 6 months, whatever. Yeah, every company will have some sort of this CRA training. Then how was it to, let's say, first start as a CRA, actually doing the tasks of a CRA?
Yeah, I actually remember my first monitoring visit, which was as for IQVIA, every company is a big company that they're working. So it's like basically top 10 pharmas that we were working for, and it was a study that I actually took over. So the study was already like ongoing and already in the middle somewhere, and I like so well remembered for my first monitoring visit. For some reason, my line manager was not able to come with me, so I was fully alone there trying
your first monitoring visit alone.
Yeah, like there was some problem that, but I think she trusted me because I was quite like a quick like, learner, and I always asked a lot of questions and like this kind of thing. And of course, she didn't have to also like be disappointed, but I remember like the trainings versus the reality.
Yeah,
I was like there. I was like, holy heavens, what I need to do, because it was so just different. Like so different from even I think. We had at the end of the monitoring like training like a mock video that you were able to click and like basically like in a sense copy the actual monitoring how it should be, but the reality for actual monitoring is so much different. And indeed it was really difficult to get the initial understanding what to do, but fortunately, of course, I was able to call and discuss everything. So it at the end, it definitely took me some time to actually understand like what I need to do. Fortunately, the study itself was really like an easy study, not too much not like vaccine studies that are quite or oncology, because at that time there was not so much of these studies going on. And it was, and the PI and everybody was really nice, so it definitely helped me. So when I was back at the second time, I was already like, okay, I did do like go like back and double check my previous work just in case, because I now like knew more what I need to do. But it was definitely a little bit like a shock, I would say, that you are just giving the binders access to ECRF. Maybe you didn't even actually get access to IBRs and you didn't know that you need that. So it was like a really difficult thing
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I can imagine. I had exactly the opposite experience, which many CRAs, I think, or when we become CRAs, we can become slightly frustrated at the fact that we are not left independent or left alone in a sense until very late in the process. And at first, which I know is meant for your own good, for your own safety, for your own training, so that at the beginning, because you've never done a monitoring visit report, you've never checked an ISF before, an ETMF before, I know it is done for the greater good of the study, let's call it that way. But when you have these intensive trainings, and then you're passionate, and then you're committed, and you want to do the job, and you're also probably, I would say, most of the CRAs are personalities a little bit like yours, Annalisa, that you are fast learners, that you want to do, that you are passionate, that you want to get hands-on. So most of us are driven by that. So the fact that you then spent months being the shadow of somebody else is a little bit sometimes frustrating at the beginning. And my experience was also that how the first time I went on a monitoring visit, I was shadowing another CRA. Then I had to do a mock monitoring visit, and then I had my line manager supervising me. And this was within the office, not even in a monitoring visit. Then I had to do another monitoring visit myself, and then the line manager would come with me. And then if they were satisfied and it looked that I was confident, then good, the next ones you can go by yourself. But still, you most likely will have 3 to 5 monitoring visits that you're accompanied, or that you're shadowing, or that, and when shadowing, it really depends also on the person you're shadowing, because if you are with somebody who lets you do something, who lets you open, who lets you do some notes and take some notes, great, because you do something. Otherwise, you are, I won't say that hours, because we're never 8 hours on site, but maybe you're 6 hours just sitting and looking at what another person is doing. And in the end, you get so tired and so bored that you don't pay attention much. And that was only with, let's say, routine monitoring visit. But every type of visit you do, you need to go through the same process. So there we go again. 4 months later, when you start maybe a site initiation visit, or 6 months later or 9 months later, when you already have experience and you have to go through these shadowing and mock site initiation visits again, and the whole process. So I won't lie to you, I think the first year of a CRA, when it comes to becoming independent, for me was a bit tedious.
I think even like for us, because like our department was so small, and we were really like didn't have so many CRAs. I think I was like drawn more into, just because there was no possibility for somebody to just always accompany, and definitely I did have accompanying, and I was able to, I think, also with other CRAs like view how they do it, but also they're like understandably are CRAs who do not prefer that, because they don't want to be additional, like the amount of work that they have, and now like basically teach somebody to do the monitoring, but also just availability, even because, as I said, we didn't have like really few oncology studies, no vaccine studies. Usually the monitoring visit like frequency was really like 5 to 6 months basically, so you didn't have like the possibility to even give somebody to go with the other CRAs. So I was definitely like, I think, more thrown quicker into the monitoring, because I remember definitely I would say I had like 3 months, 4 months max on the training side, and then I was like full on, because even I think at the end of the first year I was already monitoring 10 studies or something like that. So at the end it was like 12 total that I was like basically like switching up, and one was ending, then another was already onboarding, and that's like definitely, I think, a little bit different with the smaller ones, because as you said, you had 20 people starting at the same time. I had only me and another person, so it was definitely different.
It's such interesting. You know, today I even just wrote a little reflection on these posts that we share on social media, and I was saying how the year of experience you have as a CRA doesn't have to necessarily reflect your skills and competences, because see, that first year for you was so different for me. And I also remember how specifically every time you switched therapeutical area, or if you switch monitoring from observationals to experimental, or maybe you've never done a phase 2 and now you are going to be switched to a phase 2, this whole process started all over again. So you kind of did again overshadowing a couple of monitoring visits, and then you doing them and having someone with you, and then going into being independent. So imagine if you have a training process of maybe that first month, then you have to go through all of these mock monitoring visits, and then the shadowing monitoring visits, all of this process until you're independent. Then maybe you're switched to another study on a different therapeutical area. Then maybe you're switched to another phase, and then maybe you switch to another company that has a completely new process, and again you start that training process again. So a 2-year experience CRA might be someone who doesn't necessarily have a lot of experience of independent monitoring. So it's very tricky when we assess the skills or the competences or the experience of a CRA. It does not translate into 2 full years of monitoring experience, because in your case, it totally does. And maybe it does even more, because you were sort of by yourself from day one. So you had to just become independent very quickly. But maybe for me, because I had all of this process and bigger team and all of these policies and new trainings, if within 5 years I switch companies, let's say 3 to 4 times, and within those 3 to 4 times you have again 1, 2, 3 months of training, then we can calculate that actually the years of actually independent monitoring might not be that much in certain cases.
Yeah, and it's quite easy to actually not get the experience on initiation visits, selection visits, or closeout visits, because you are always maybe given a study in mid and taken away once again when it's not actually closing. And you don't have even the experience to do something like that, because you haven't been able to do it. And I think it's really like maybe not in the same like thing, but when I think I had already been a CRA for 1.5 years, and I ended the CRA role in 2.5 years. So basically within that 1 year, I already had 2 audits happening for me. And then I have another person who worked for CRA for 12 years and never had an audit or inspection. You will never know if you're gonna get something or not, and you indeed cannot take like all of the CRAs as the same, because the experience can be totally different.
Absolutely, you're so right. And I think my only tip to wrap up this episode today for any CRA out there is you can't stop learning. And I think if you become a CRA, you should also know that. And if you are a CRA, just this is a little reminder of you cannot stop or stagnate your learning process or your growth or development just by thinking, I'm a CRA already. I did my training process. Anything else I need, the company will give it to me or they will train me, because the years of experience you have don't directly translate into your competencies, your skills, and also your preparation for the moment that you might decide to join into and to step into leadership, whether it's study or people leadership. The more broad knowledge you have and expertise and exposure, the better, because the better you'll be able to lead, whether people or studies or activities or therapeutical areas or global studies as well.
And I think that actually the previous episode with Peter, I think it's a really like awesome way even if you are not maybe in the role already, but you are learning the things that are associated, it actually opens up so much more for you and the possibilities to get something else. As Peter says as well, keep your possibilities or ask for the possibilities yourself, and you actually are given and you are able to evolve yourself. Absolutely. And you are able to add that into the CV as well, that you have done it. So absolutely. I think, who didn't listen to Peter's episode, then definitely go back. I think it was really valuable episode.
Absolutely. So thank you everyone for listening, for watching. I hope this episode on those first few steps as a CRA, those first 100 meters when we became CRA was insightful. It gives you a little bit of perspective into if you're looking to become CRA or you don't know what to expect those first few weeks or how you're going to become independent CRAs. I hope it also gives you a little bit of peace of mind if maybe you're a little bit afraid of those first few days. So don't be afraid. You won't be thrown at hospital and just go do your monitoring from day one. There's a process that is intended to make sure that you're trained, that you can do the activities and the tasks and responsibilities of a CRA independently, slowly, smoothly, and you're growing towards that. So Annalisa, thank you for another great conversation, another great morning coffee. I would say that we're slowly getting to have this habit every week, which I absolutely love and enjoy. And everyone else, if you've liked it, please don't forget to subscribe so that you get notified of the next episode. Let us know if you like it. Give us a thumbs up, a comment, a DM. We'll love to receive your messages. And also, if you have a topic that you'd like us to discuss, let us know. Thank you, everyone.